Welcome, everybody, to phase two of your home build. So, you've got your planning done. You are ready to start considering what to do with your land. Let's get right into it. So, you're going to break ground. That's awesome. Well, what do you got to think about when you're going to break ground? Well, first of all, did you get your property from a developer? Is the lot already cleared? Is it just grass left over? Is it just dirt left over? Or are you buying raw land? Is it going to be covered in trees? Is it going to have boulders? Is it going to have rocks? Is it going to have ruts? Is it going to have streams flowing through it? Who knows what you got to deal with? But you have to consider what's the state of the land already. And if it's not ready to build on, then you got to do something. So let's talk about it. Now, the first thing you should be aware of when you're going to do anything to your land is, depending on where you've bought the land, you may have to go get a permit to cut down certain trees on your property. This is the way the world works. I talked about permitting before in the preparation section, and you have to be aware that cutting trees is something that some places care about a lot, and it's something that some places care about not at all. So you just got to check and be aware. However, for all the other work that you got to move boulders and dig and stuff like that, you really just need to be aware that some places are going to be very particular about the soil you're disturbing. Now, why is that a problem? Well, when you disturb soil, it creates erosion, and eroded loose soils can wash away in rainwater. And if you're building in a city, believe you me, nobody wants all this dirt and junk floating through their streets. So you may be required to put up silt fencing or stuff like that to prevent erosion problems on your site. Now, while we can clear our whole property by hand, sometimes it's faster to just use big, strong, heavy equipment. That's right, a bulldozer is going to be able to clear your trees in your property much faster than you can with some scissors and maybe some pliers. That's right, a bulldozer is going to be able to clear your property a whole lot faster than you using some scissors and a shovel. So you ought to seriously consider having either rental equipment done if you know how to operate it yourself, or go ahead and have a professional come out, use their very powerful equipment that will work very quickly. And of course, they're well trained on it. So they're going to spend very short amount of time compared to what you might spend. And lastly, of course, you're going to have to dispose of some stuff. Now, if you have a huge property, you can pretty much just like push the dirt aside and spread it out. Or you could go create a burn pile on your 30 acres, toss the trees and brush all in a pile over there and go burn it, and that'll dispose of it just fine. But if you have a really small lot in the city or something like that, you need to be aware that you're going to have to haul this stuff off in a trailer, take it to a dump, take it to somewhere else that needs to be disposed of, and that adds costs. So just be aware. So you've cleared your land of the junk that's in the way. Now you need to prepare for your foundation. So why would we be excavating for our foundation? Well, the first thing is you need to keep in mind the soil is actually quite unstable in a lot of places. And there are a lot of places where you actually want to dig up the soil that's going to be below your foundation, and you would rather replace it with a much more stable soil. Well, what does a stable soil mean? Well, there's a thing called PVR, potential vertical rise. And what this has to do with is it has to do with the plasticity index in the soil. And if you have a lot of clay content or expansive soils, then you are going to be dealing with a dirt underneath your house that likes to go up and down based on how wet it is. And so if you'd like to make your house more stable, you should remove that junk and install some nice engineered fill that's compacted, much more stable. So that way, when the summer, in the dry season, you don't have a whole bunch of cracking in your soils, and in the wet season, you don't have a bunch of expansion in the soils. That can cause a lot of future problems, so highly recommended to make sure that that's not a problem you're going to be dealing with. And of course, if you're on a steep site or if you've got some serious grade to be working with, and you're going to actually do a split level home where you've got like a basement or your foundation steps down simply because that's just a smarter way to build, then you might actually be excavating in order to cut out the right amounts of dirt so that your dirt steps in the right place or whatever it may be. Of course, if you want a basement, you're going to dig a big hole. And if you have a steep site but you want a flat house, then you're going to have to do a whole bunch of cut and fill where you remove dirt from one part of the property and stack it on another part of the property. Of course, compacting and compaction testing it so that you don't have an unstable foundation. And the last thing to think about is you really want your house to be embedded in the soil. You don't just want it sitting on top of the soil because there are lateral forces that will act on your house, whether you're in an earthquake zone or you're going to get a windstorm coming by. If the earth can cause things that will make your house try to slide around on the ground, you want it embedded in the ground so that it does not go anywhere. So as you prepare to build your house, you ought to think about the fact that it takes a lot of work to build a house, and it also takes a lot of manpower and utilities. If you're building a house in the city, this part's not super complicated. But if you're building a house out in the boonies, you ought to think about your utility access. There are a lot of people that are going to come and go on your site. And it would be nice if they had a place to use the bathroom and they didn't have to do some cat holing. But in a broader sense, the construction activities that are going to put your house together are actually going to require quite a bit of utility. The foundation itself, if you're pouring any concrete, guess what? Concrete needs water. And while a concrete truck oftentimes will arrive pre-mixed with water in it, and the concrete truck will also have water on board, you're about to get concrete all over your shoes, your boots, your tools, all over the place. And so you really want a way to clean all these tools off. And if you don't have a pump or water accessible from a hose or something to clean all this stuff off, it's going to be tough. So you really do want water accessible somehow. And let's be real, guys, nobody is using hand saws and hand drills anymore. There are many construction tools that we use electricity for to speed up the process, save us time, work more efficiently, etc. And this electricity runs out when we use our tools. So having temporary power set up to run your tools, recharge your tools, etc., is going to be much better for everybody. You don't have to haul out a generator, you don't have to rely on gasoline or diesel. You're good to go. And that is what you got to be thinking about when you start to get into actually building your house. I'll see you guys in the next one.